A single synthetic voice command can drain millions from your corporate treasury instantly today. Sophisticated generative deepfakes are completely rendering traditional biometric verification obsolete across the global enterprise landscape right now. Modern threat actors no longer need compromised passwords to breach your organizational perimeter. They simply clone your chief executive officer's voice using less than 3 seconds of clear public audio. These high-fidelity audio and video clones are deployed in highly targeted spear phishing campaigns. They target financial controllers and systems administrators who possess elevated administrative privileges within the network infrastructure. Traditional identity and access management systems rely heavily on voice and facial patterns for remote authentication. However, advanced neural networks can accurately mimic these human traits with terrifying precision. The enterprise challenge is no longer about detecting unencrypted network traffic or simple malicious software. Security teams must now defend the very sensory data that human beings trust implicitly. When a regional director receives a direct video call from their chief executive, compliance protocols often break down. The immediate psychological pressure to obey commands overrides standard operational safeguards. Recent global incidents highlight multi-million-dollar capital transfers authorized entirely via synthetic video conferences. Attackers successfully impersonated multiple corporate executives simultaneously to deceive a single, isolated finance employee. Standard defensive frameworks from the National Institute of Standards and Technology must adapt to this reality. Static identity verification parameters are fundamentally broken in an era of infinite generative content. The OWASP Top 10 for large language models highlights unsafe tool execution and data poisoning. Yet, the weaponization of generative outputs against human operators represents an equally critical operational threat vectors. To survive this shifting threat landscape, enterprises must completely eliminate sensory trust from their environments. Every piece of corporate audio and video media must be treated as inherently hostile until verified. This requires the immediate implementation of real-time neural artifact scanning pipelines at the network layer. These automated systems continuously analyze incoming streams for microscopic anomalies left by generative algorithms. Generative models invariably introduce subtle phase inconsistencies and localized pixel distortions during real-time rendering. While invisible to human eyes, deep learning classifiers can detect these statistical deviations instantly. Advanced detection pipelines analyze the high-frequency spectrum of audio signals to locate synthetic components. They track phase manipulation and unnatural formant transitions that expose the underlying artificial generation process. Video streams undergo rigorous spatial and temporal consistency checks across consecutive communication frames. Photoplethysmography algorithms monitor subtle blood flow variations in the speaker's face to confirm physical biological presence. If the scanned media lacks the expected microfluctuations of human physiology, the system flags the stream. The communication session is immediately sandboxed before any sensitive corporate data can be exchanged. However, relying entirely on algorithmic detection represents a dangerous game of continuous cat and mouse. As generative capabilities scale up, synthetic artifacts become increasingly difficult to distinguish from genuine biological signals. Algorithmic scaling laws dictate that downstream model performance will eventually surpass current detection thresholds. Therefore, absolute security cannot depend solely on finding flaws within a piece of digital media. Enterprises must combine neural artifact scanning with immutable, hardware-backed digital signature verification layers. We must secure the entire supply chain of content creation from the physical device to the receiver. This architectural shift relies directly on the standards established by the Content Provenance and Authenticity Specification. The C2PA framework provides a secure method for tracking asset history explicitly. Corporate laptops and executive smartphones must run secure enclave technologies at the hardware layer. These isolated chips cryptographically sign video and audio metadata at the exact moment of capture. The resulting cryptographic manifest is securely bound directly to the digital media file asset wrapper. It contains immutable records detailing the device identity, timestamp, and precise geographic capture parameters. When a communication stream reaches an internal enterprise server, the gateway validates this cryptographic manifest. Any modification to the pixel data or audio packets instantly invalidates the signature layer. Unsigned media or assets with broken cryptographic chains are automatically blocked by the firewall. This ensures that only verified, untampered streams from authorized corporate devices can reach corporate endpoints. This design effectively extends zero-trust architecture principles straight into the sensory domain of communications. We no longer ask if a person looks real. We cryptographically prove their device identity. The operational integration of these complex frameworks requires significant structural shifts within corporate technology teams. Traditional security monitoring must evolve to encompass advanced media provenance tracking and identity assertion. Organizations are actively expanding their security operations centers to establish dedicated identity verification teams. These specialized engineers manage the cryptographic key infrastructure required to maintain global corporate media integrity. The World Economic Forum warns that synthetic media manipulation poses severe risks to macroeconomic stability. Fraudulent capital transfers executed via deepfakes can destabilize mid-market enterprises within days of an attack. The economic impact extends far beyond immediate capital loss to encompass massive long-term brand degradation. Loss of client trust following a deepfake data leak can permanently impair corporate equity valuations. Furthermore, the International Labor Organization projects shifting labor dynamics as corporate structures adapt rapidly. Security expenditure is reallocated away from traditional physical controls toward advanced digital identity verification frameworks. Chief Information Security Officers must view deepfake defense not as an isolated software tool. It is a comprehensive business continuity strategy requiring active governance from the board of directors. Let us examine the complete implementation roadmap for a hardened executive identity defense framework. The process begins with a comprehensive audit of all high-privilege corporate communication channels globally. Security architects must map every endpoint capable of initiating capital transfers or accessing core database systems. These pathways represent the primary targets for executive impersonation and synthetic audio phishing. Once mapped, all corporate communications infrastructure must be updated to support mandatory C2PA verification protocols. Legacy video conferencing tools that cannot validate digital signatures must be systematically decommissioned. Simultaneously, enterprise networks must deploy edge-based small language models to monitor text-based communication patterns. These localized systems flag unusual semantic shifts or urgent phrases that suggest social engineering attempts. Continuous network monitoring must integrate with identity federation providers to enforce context-aware authentication rules. If an executive call originates from an unverified location, secondary confirmation layers trigger automatically. Hardware security tokens like FIDO2 keys must be mandated for all operational adjustments to critical infrastructure. This fully decouples authorization power from simple voice or video confirmation protocols entirely. We must also establish an out-of-band verification process for all anomalous or large financial transactions. Human operators must use pre-arranged physical tokens to authorize capital transfers independently of digital streams. Employee training frameworks must be overhauled to address the psychological nuances of synthetic deception. Personnel must be taught to look for specific behavioral red flags rather than trusting appearance. Common indicators include unnatural pauses during conversation, inconsistent lighting on face borders, and strange audio clipping. When these artifacts are spotted, employees must immediately terminate the session securely. The defensive posture must remain completely dynamic to match the rapid evolution of generative AI research. Threat intelligence feeds must continuously update neural scanning engines with new artifact signature definitions. This technical approach requires deep alignment with global regulatory standards like the European Union Cybersecurity Act. Compliance frameworks increasingly mandate strict verification steps for sensitive electronic interactions across corporate entities. By adhering to international guidelines from the ISO 27001 series, enterprises validate their resilience. Hardened media verification practices become a core metric during comprehensive cybersecurity compliance audits. The cost of implementing a hardware-backed provenance layer is negligible compared to the fiscal damage of a successful exploit. Forward-looking corporations treat this architecture as a mandatory infrastructure investment asset. As we transition into a world defined by post-quantum cryptographic threats, media security becomes even more complex. Current digital signatures must be upgraded to lattice-based mathematical algorithms to ensure durability. Securing executive identity today requires a perfect convergence of advanced hardware, real-time algorithms, and disciplined human processes. A single weak point in this chain renders the entire perimeter completely useless. Let us break down the exact technical pipeline of an incoming corporate communication call under this paradigm. The session initiates when an external endpoint attempts to connect to an internal user. The corporate firewall immediately intercepts the incoming packet stream at the demilitarized zone boundary layer. It inspects the media transport protocol headers for the presence of valid cryptographic C2PA manifests. If the manifest exists, the system verifies the public key certificate against the centralized identity access directory. This step confirms the device belongs to an authorized user within the ecosystem. Concurrently, the stream is mirrored to a high-throughput neural artifact processing engine running on specialized accelerators. This hardware performs rapid convolutional analysis to spot hidden spatial and temporal deepfake anomalies. The audio track undergoes immediate fast Fourier transform analysis to isolate high-frequency acoustic phase distributions. This mathematical breakdown exposes synthetic vocoder patterns that deviate from real human throat movements. If the neural processing engine detects synthetic signatures above a tight probability threshold, alert sequences activate. The call stream is watermarked with an explicit warning banner visible to the user. For maximum security applications, the session is instantly routed to an automated verification bot for interrogation. The bot presents a dynamic challenge response protocol requiring the use of a hardware token. This multi-layered approach guarantees that even a flawless real-time deepfake cannot execute malicious operations unchecked. The attacker is blocked at the gateway long before they can build psychological leverage over employees. We must recognize that the digital perimeter has fundamentally moved from network routers directly to human senses. Protecting the enterprise now means protecting what your employees see and hear every single day. Legacy security mindsets focused entirely on data confidentiality and system availability are no longer sufficient. Digital transformation mandates a profound focus on data integrity, specifically concerning human identity assertions. By deploying hardware-backed cryptographic provenance alongside real-time neural analysis, you build an unbreachable corporate communication wall. This framework transforms vulnerable human interactions into highly secure, verifiable technical transactions. Ensure your technology organization is not left behind as threat actors deploy increasingly advanced generative systems, The time to architect a zero-trust media environment is before the first attack occurs. Review your infrastructure deployment blueprints and begin mandating cryptographic media validation across all corporate channels. Secure your executive identities, protect your critical financial assets, and ensure long-term corporate resilience. The future belongs to organizations that proactively defend their operational parameters from synthetic deception techniques. Build your defense-in-depth framework with verified sensory pipelines to maintain absolute structural authority over your domain. Subscribe immediately to an Enterprise Tech Brief to command tomorrow's technical leverage. Secure all enterprise assets from emerging synthetic threats and maintain absolute corporate operational resilience. Zero hype, pure architecture.